Finally, time to do the wiring. Actually, this is one of my favorite parts of the build, because when you finally get to this, it means that you can almost run it. And I've wanted to drive this thing now for way too long. So, very exciting. We're going to actually move the video over to the bench and start doing the install. And I'm going to use the Hobby Wing Quick Run 1080 ESC on my brushless Holmes Hobby motor. And right now we're going to talk about electronics on the bench. 1080 is the number from Hobby Wing. Love this ESC. It's a quick run version, programmable, tiny, for a brushed motor. I said brushless earlier. That was wrong. It's brushed. At 35 millimeters by 28 by 15, 16 millimeters. This is a very small ESC. They never get hot. Waterproof switch. Really, I mean, one of my favorites. Programmable with a card. Jumper wire included. 30 watts of soldering iron is all I need. I use no flux on my soldering. I use a rosin core electronics fine solder. It's very, very fine. It does a really good job cleaning the parts. You can see the layout here. I've got a spot right on top of the Trailmaster motor from Holmes to put the ESC, so that's where it's going. No brainer there, but the wires are way too long, so gonna have to chop those wires off for the motor. I do not need that extra 3-4 inches of wire on there, so they're gone. Soldering iron's warmed up, but it's really important to clean it too. Don't forget to clean it. That's beautiful. So I'm just going to tin the wires, and then I've got another trick that I love doing, which is actually squishing the wire flat. So once the solder has cooled off on the wires, they're kind of round and weird shaped, but to get a really nice connection, I like to put them in a pair of pliers and flat squish them. It works great. And then you can just put them on the motor after that. The motor has flat tabs, you know, you tin them up, you put them on the flat tabs. It works great. My ESC is going to sit right on top of the motor here, so this whole thing should be reliable for years to come. It's perfect. So the programming with the battery on is very simple. You simply plug this in. You don't need the receiver or transmitter on or any of that stuff. So you plug that in, and then on the programming port here where you put this extra wire, that goes into the top of the programming card. And then you can go through the different settings here now after you turn the switch on. So I'm going to turn on the switch for the ESC. And you see it arms right away, and it recognizes that the card is plugged in when you turn it on, and it doesn't arm the motor or anything. You can see the ESC is still, or the receiver is still flashing, like it doesn't have a signal, which it doesn't, because when this is plugged in and you turn it on, it goes straight into programming. It disables this whole thing, so you can't, you know, mess it up and drive it away. It's great. I just want to give you a record of the values that I'm using. I've actually done this a whole bunch of times on different ESCs, the same ESC. So I'm on one of my programming cards that I used years ago. I marked on it these little hashtags here with the numbers that I'm using. So I kind of put a little mark on it so I know what I've used in the past. And this same programming card actually works on the BL 1080 or 1060, sorry. And the BL 1060 only has 9 categories instead of having 15, but it does the same job. All it cares about is the number of the item and then the quality that you're putting in to give it the data. And this is the data that I use for the BL ones, the brushless ones. Anyway, to go through these just for your own record, forward running mode, and then this is the battery type, LiPo. The cutoff voltage I'm using, the initial start force, I like using 0 so it doesn't have a lot of like drive shaft snapping torque. When you first touch the throttle, it's a little smoother. The maximum forward force, of course, I want is 100 because I want all the power. I go to number 6, which is reverse force. I like 100% reverse. That's number 4. 7 is the braking force. I've used this as 50%. I think it has to do with the typical non-crawler setup, but in any case, I'm using it. I've just put 50%. It seems to work. So, and then you have the initial brake force, which I believe is like a curve. There's a braking curve that you can set up. I start at 0, so that's number 1. And then you get the drag brake setting, which is actually 0 to 100%. And I have that set for 50% as well. So I think the drag brake setting is number 9 that I'm actually, the typical crawler will be using, not the other one that's listed on the back of the card. Number 10 is the drag rate, which I think is a curve. So I put the curve kind of in the middle. It's level 4 out of 9. Number 11 is the neutral range. That shouldn't change. It should be 0.5 milliseconds. 12, the start punch mode. Startup mode, like when you first touch the gas, how twitchy is it kind of thing. I think you can do some adjustment on that, but I use it in the middle at a 4 out of 9. And then the frequency is really important on this one. You'll see on the back of the card here, they list the available frequencies on the bottom here. This is this one way down here. That one is 1K, 2K, 4K, 8K, 16K. So by the time, I always use 16K, which is setting number 5, and the reason I do that is because 16 cycles the brushes, cycles the current to the brushes so fast that it actually makes the motor silent. So at 4K, you can still hear it. You can still hear that, when you touch the gas, you hear that that brushless sound, the cycling sound. At 1K, it's super annoying and twitchy. At 16, you get the smooth, really smooth throttle, and it's almost totally silent. So I use that. Number 14 is 2 selectable different Beck voltages, 6 volts for number 1, 7.4 volt output for number 2. Really cool that you can adjust that right in the speed control. And then there's a freewheeling mode for number 15, which is disabled or enabled, so I don't want freewheeling. I want that gone. I don't know what that does, but I'm done with it. So not using that, and then it goes all the way back to number 1. Just simply push OK, it loads down to the thing, and you're done. You can turn the switch off, unplug everything, and back to normal. Oh, look at that thing. That is unbelievable. I'm speechless. Like you work for so long on the bench with the truck like this that you know is going to drive really just the way that you want, and then you finally get it out on the trail and you realize that it's exactly what you thought it was going to be. Like, I mean, there's a couple of tweaks I want to do with it for sure. There's no reason why I wouldn't do a couple of adjustments. I mean, I have some spring tuning to do. I might change the shock oil. I've got already a couple of tiny mods done on the chassis setup already that I'll show you guys in a later video. But I mean, first ride on the rocks, and if I can find rocks in the snow, I mean, we had a pretty hard winter with ice and buildup this year, so the trails are not open. But I did manage to find a couple of rocks over by the river for this video, and I'm telling you, like, I am going to put a lot of wheel time on this thing this year. I want to thank you guys for coming along for the journey. Please smash the like button on the YouTube video if you can. Check out the links in the description for some equipment that I've been using. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to put them into the YouTube comments. I'd be really happy to answer your questions there. And thank you so much for coming along for the ride. There's a lot more to come. Wait till the next video, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.